Now we're looking at question 6 of the GCSE music specimen paper, and we've actually looked at the majority of this page on our lesson on Wednesday, our last ever music lesson, R. Right? And in that lesson we discussed how often in these questions there's a clear rhythmic similarity between what you're asked to identify the pitch of and something that's come before. And in this case it's quite an obvious one in bar 1 and bar 2. So you can see that the first two notes are a dotted quarter note followed by an eighth note, and again we've got exactly that there. Then in the first bar we've got one quarter note, which is this one here, followed by two eighth notes. Now they're either tied or slurred together, so it's worth roughly the same amount. Well, it's worth exactly the same amount if they're tied, and if they're slurred it's worth the same rhythmic value, but they're on different pitches. And then in the what we're being asked to identify, we've got half notes, whereas we've got two quarter notes. Well, one is dotted in the extract there. So we've only got a small difference between the rhythm asked and the rhythm given already. And we discovered that if we're listening for notes that are the same, it's first of all very obvious that in both extracts, lay rests on the E natural both times. It's repeated exactly the same. That me is on the F natural both times, and that the slurred parts follow the same pattern. It goes to the E for down, and when it slurs onto a D for the second syllable of down, we then stay there on the D for low. And you can see that in the answer given by the exam board here. So really the trick in all of these questions is to remember that you get a mark for every note you get right. So there's 5 marks, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And often, although it doesn't say it in this exam mark scheme, in most years they've awarded 1 mark at least if you get the correct shape of the melody. So it's all a case of listening for notes that are the same and lining them up on the score, and then for the subtle differences between the two rhythmic lines. If there isn't a similar rhythm between two extracts, which is quite unlikely, then you just need to apply the same logic of listening for a note that is the same at some point. So it might be, for example, that your lay was actually on a G natural here, and that was where the two lined up because that was the same note. So listening for repeated notes is your easy way through these questions. Then finally it asks you to describe the texture of this excerpt. So obviously we've got our 3 standard responses of homophonic, polyphonic, monophonic. In this example it tells us that the answer is accompanied melody / solo voice and accompaniment. Probably a safe answer there is homophonic, but you could always have backed it up with the same description here of accompanied melody or solo voice and an accompaniment. Either way, this is largely a homophonic texture. So that's question 6 of the mark scheme, focusing on pitch dictation, melody dictation. So you're looking for notes that repeat themselves compared to what you've got in your given rhythm.